Single dad discovers millionaire buried alive in the woods. What she whispered will change every. Jake's heart thundered in his chest as he rummaged through the thick underbrush, calling out for Lily. "Where are you, kiddo?" His voice barely masked the agitation pooling in his stomach. They set out for a Saturday expedition, a trip to take their minds off the bills piling up on the kitchen counter and the relentless grind at the factory. But now, with the sun beginning to dip low, anxiety clawed at him. "Daddy, look." Lily's high-pitched voice cut through the silence, instant relief washing over him. But as he hurried towards her, dread settled in the back of his mind. What if this was another adventure that led them nowhere? For too long now, his days were scattered with dashed hopes, moments where he fought to be a father and a provider in a town that seemed to brush them aside. Lily dug excitedly at a patch of earth, pulling back clumps of dirt with tiny, determined fingers. "I think I found something." A flash of recognition struck Jake as he bent to watch. This was no simple treasure hunt. The energy shifted as she scraped at the ground, dirt flying in the air. "What is it?" Jake knelt, fear rippling through him as he caught sight of something unnervingly out of place, an arm, strangely still. Heat rushed to his cheeks. They weren't alone in these woods. His heartbeat quickened, dread wrapping around his throat as he helped Lily unearth the figure buried shallowly in the dirt. With a sudden jerk, the figure gasped, their eyes wide with shock. It was Claire, a local entrepreneur whose disappearance had stirred the town months ago. "Help me," she whispered, voice barely a candlelight in the quickening dark. Jake's mind raced. The implications of this moment spiraled out of control. His instincts screamed to save her, the rugged promise of fatherhood under pressure to shield Lily from darkness thundered through him. Yet a pocket of fear gripped him. What if he was caught up in something too deep to untangle? "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Claire's recovery began to intertwine their lives in unexpected ways. She had a world of money and privilege behind her, yet with each interaction, Jake felt more the outsider. The small-town murmurs about heroism felt more like chains, restraining him in whispers about a man like him not deserving to coexist with someone of Claire's status. The weight of those judgments threatened to crush him, and self-doubt trickled into his heart. What if all of this was a mistake? As time passed, Claire's family sought to bury her truth, revealing a darkness linked tightly to her wealthy upbringing. They called her recovery a misadventure rather than a kidnapping, prioritizing their pristine image over her pain. Each revelation tore at Jake, pushing him towards a choice he never wanted, capitalizing on Claire's journey or standing for the integrity that had always guided him. He found himself at a precipice as Claire's whispered secrets began to unravel the tapestry of his life, a haunting echo drawing closer. A chilling realization occurred: her family's involvement might cut deeper than either had imagined, propelling them down a dangerous path towards justice. Would he protect Lily or embrace the chance to elevate their life? Should he play his cards right? With each decision, Jake felt the shadows close in, their roots tangled in his own fears. The thought of losing everything, a comfortable life built on sacrifice, or risking it all for Claire's truth, filled him with despair. Balancing the scales of love, duty, and justice pushed him to a breaking point, where moral complexity became their darkest enemy. The morning light filtered through the trees, stirring Jake awake from the turmoil of restless sleep. He felt the weight of the previous day's events still pressing heavily upon him. Claire's recovery had turned into an avalanche of complications, segmenting his life into before and after. Jake couldn't shake off the feeling of voyeurism, as if he were watching someone else's life unravel. He glanced at Lily, still sleeping peacefully beside him, her innocence a bittersweet reminder of everything at stake. Her presence anchored him in a reality starkly different from the whirlwind of political maneuvering and media scrutiny that seemed ready to engulf them. His phone buzzed with a message, pulling him further into the confusion. It was from Claire, an invitation to meet. She needed to discuss something urgent. what was supposed to be a small-town scandal was morphing into a courtroom drama. The morning shadow of apprehension laced through Jake's veins, but he resisted the pull of resignation that threatened to drag him down. This might be the moment to reclaim his narrative, to define his role not just as a father, but as a man capable of making choices that would influence the lives of those around him. He dressed quickly, locking in a determination he hadn't felt in years. With reminiscences of a simpler life flashing through his mind, he made his way to the meeting place. As he approached a small cafe at the edge of the park, a sense of purpose began to unfurl inside him. This was not merely about saving Claire but also disentangling himself from the reputation of being the single dad forever caught in the undertow of familial obligations. The air was thick with tension as Jake entered the cafe. Claire sat at a corner table, her eyes darting around nervously, a stark contrast to the poised entrepreneur he once admired. "Thank you for coming," she breathed, brushing her fingers along the table's edge. "What is going on, Claire?" he asked, clasping his hands tightly, feeling the need to ground himself amidst the frenetic energy she exuded. "I want to fight back. This is all wrong," she whispered urgently. The words poured out of her like a dam bursting. Jake leaned in, compelled by the fire igniting within her. "They don't see me as a person, just a headline. My family wants to manipulate this story to their advantage, to sweep everything under the rug." Her blue eyes penetrated his, searching for understanding. "But I can't let that happen. Not for me, and not for you and Lily." Her determination sent a ripple of clarity through him. It was more than just a question of survival, it was about justice. Supporting Claire meant not just helping her uncover the truth but also revealing a side of himself he had buried alongside his dreams. The idea of confronting the very systems that had marginalized him sparked a new resolve. Jake felt the weight of a decision crystallizing. This was his moment, a turning point where he could resolve to step out of the shadows that had defined him for too long. "We do this together," he asserted, and a strange harmony whispered between them, synchronizing their fates. He knew the implications of this path could herald tremendous challenges, but it was also a chance for both of them to reclaim their stories. As they strategized their next steps, every word solidified his own resolve. But lurking behind their aspirations was the specter of Claire's family, ready to ambush any endeavor for justice. The stakes had escalated sharply. Would they be able to navigate this treacherous terrain together, or would the forces opposing them crush their ambitions? A menacing storm of conflict loomed on the horizon, threatening everything they tried to build. The time had come to face the truth, and if they were going to emerge victorious, they would have to confront not only external enemies but also the demons lurking within themselves. What they would uncover could change everything they knew about their pasts, and Jake's heart surged with the realization that this was merely the beginning. Jake's mind whirred as he left the cafe, the weight of their conversation pressing against him like an unbearable fog. Outside, he inhaled the crisp air, trying to regain his composure. He tucked his hands into his pocket, feeling the cold metal of his keys biting into his palm, an anchor grounding him in reality. What had begun as a supportive gesture now felt like the unfolding of a dangerous mission, one that could unravel everything he hoped to protect. He glanced back at the cafe. Claire sat by the window, her spirit blazing even in that confined space, a stark reminder that she was no longer the vulnerable entrepreneur needing protecting, but rather an ally embarking on a shared journey toward justice. Each decision they faced would demand more than courage, it would confront the very essence of who he was becoming. With a deep breath, Jake set a course for home, a place that no longer felt comforting. Lily's laughter was the solace he craved, but there was a sense of urgency within him, a calling to rise beyond being just her father. In the following days, every moment was a blend of panic and excitement as he fine-tuned his approach. This was not merely about navigating the media storm surrounding Claire but also positioning himself within it, a way to reclaim not just their narrative but his self-worth. That evening, after tucking Lily into bed, Jake took out a pad and began mapping out their strategy. He sketched a timeline of events, noting key players in the unfolding drama, the media representatives, Claire's family members, and potential allies. Each name on his list was a reminder that he was no longer the passive participant in his life but a strategist in his own right. The hardest part was realizing how deeply intertwined his fate had become with Claire's. What would be lost if he failed? Would he slip back into the identity he had fought so hard to alter, the one of a solitary father defined only by his daughter's needs? His phone buzzed on the table. It was a text from Claire, We need to meet. I've called a lawyer. Jake's heart raced. This was a crucial step in both their lives. Later that night, he met Claire outside a dimly lit diner. Her face was lit by the neon glow, a contrast to the shadows of uncertainty lurking around them. I've got a plan, she said, her voice filled with renewed determination. If we play this right, we can turn the narrative. But we'll need evidence, something solid that proves my family has been operating behind the scenes to manipulate the media. Jake's mind shifted gears as he absorbed her words. What do you need me to do? He asked, feeling the tides of his future swell with this allying force. Trust, she replied, a soft plea that resonated deeply within him. And your instincts. You understand the people in this town better than I do. We can't just confront them, we need to outsmart them. He nodded, realizing the stakes were higher than ever. This was not just a fight for Claire's dignity but for liberation from the chains of expectations that had shackled him for years. With newfound clarity, Jake could finally see the contours of his own future, which no longer felt dictated by the past. As they strategized through the night, the weight of choices loomed larger, growing stronger than his fear of confrontation. They were stepping into an arena that would demand sacrifices, a place where he would need to exercise his growing resolve and forge alliances within the fractured world around him. As dawn broke, illuminating their weary faces, Jake felt the urgency thrum within his chest. They were embarking on a path that would require them not only to face external conflicts but also to reconcile the aspects of themselves that were reluctant to rise. What would be revealed in the heat of their confrontation? He couldn't shake the feeling that each decision would lead to a reckoning of sorts, one that might finally liberate him from the shadows he had long inhabited. Little did he know, a reckoning was on the horizon, and the truth behind Claire's family was far more intricate than either could have prepared for. Jake awoke the next morning with a sense of purpose that felt as foreign as it was exhilarating. The sun pierced through the curtains, illuminating the scattered notes and timelines from the night before. He had spent hours mapping out their next moves, but the shadows of uncertainty still loomed large. Today was the day they would meet Claire's lawyer. It was the first step toward taking control of a narrative that had long been dictated by outside forces. As he prepared Lily's breakfast, the clatter of plates provided a comforting rhythm. A part of him wished for mere domestic simplicity, fluffy pancakes, giggles over syrupy messes, but another part, the part ignited by Claire's resolve, urged him forward. He couldn't afford to let sentimentality tether him from this new path he had chosen. After sending Lily off to school, Jake made his way to the law office, his mind racing through potential strategies. He couldn't help but wonder how the meeting would unfold. Claire had already established herself as a fierce advocate, but he needed to match her intensity not just through enthusiasm but through calculated action. Upon entering the office, subtle tension swirled in the air. Claire was already seated with a formidable-looking lawyer. The lawyer, a middle-aged woman with sharp features and an unwavering gaze, glanced up as Jake approached, silently sizing him up. "Thanks for coming," Claire said, her voice steady but laced with a hint of anxiety. "This is Vanessa, my lawyer." "Nice to meet you, Jake," Vanessa said, her tone professional, yet assessing everything from his posture to his response. "I understand you're pivotal to our approach." Jake felt a swell of pride but also a wave of intimidation. "I'm here to help however I can." The words flowed out, but internally he grappled with the weight of expectation. The meeting began with a dry overview of the case, but quickly turned into a discussion on strategy. Claire shared her family's connections and how they had manipulated narratives, while Vanessa drew diagrams and highlighted their potential weaknesses. Jake listened closely, absorbing details that would help him understand the battlefield. Then, unexpectedly, Vanessa turned her focus on Jake. "You have insights into the media's landscape here, don't you?" He nodded, grappling with the sudden spotlight. "Yes, I know how they operate. This town, they thrive on sensationalism and scandal." "Then we need you to leverage that knowledge," Vanessa urged. "We'll need a coordinated plan against your brother-in-law, a direct player in this game." The words were direct, almost challenging, thrusting Jake into the heart of conflict. The realization struck him. He couldn't just support Claire from the shadows. He had to step into the light and claim his space. This wasn't merely about her struggle, it was a chance for him to redefine his own story. As they outlined a series of actions gathering evidence, reaching out to contacts, even confronting Claire's family, Jake felt an empowering shift. With each plan they articulated, fear receded, replaced by a clearer vision of his role. He was an active participant, not merely a bystander waiting for things to happen. When the meeting concluded, Claire and Jake stepped outside. The sun's rays felt different now, invigorating, promising. "I didn't realize you had such a good grasp on this," Claire remarked, her admiration evident. It filled him with confidence but also sparked a flicker of unease. What if he faltered in executing this newfound potential? Yet, there was a rising determination. He had come too far to turn back. They decided to walk a little further before heading to their respective tasks. The silence between them was comfortable, imbued with an unspoken agreement to navigate this turbulent journey together. But then, as if on cue, Jake's phone buzzed in his pocket again. It was a text from Lily's school. Something had happened. His stomach dropped. What would this revelation mean for all of them? Jake turned to Claire as the air thickened with tension. "What if this changes everything?" he said, uncertain whether the fear of the unknown reflected on his face. Little did they know, the true ramifications of their alliance were about to unfold in a way far more devastating than they could have ever imagined. Jake's heart raced as he pulled out his phone, his hands trembling slightly while staring at the notification. He could feel a knot tighten in his stomach as he opened the text. "Emergency, please contact school administration." The simplicity of the message packed an unexpected punch, leaving him momentarily paralyzed by a rush of possibilities. "Everything all right?" Claire's voice pulled him from the chaos in his mind, her expression shifting to one of concern. "I don't know yet," Jake managed to say, clutching his phone tightly. The weight of parental responsibility loomed larger than any confrontation with Claire's family or his brother-in-law. "Should we go let us find out what's happening first?" Claire's assertive tone propelled him into action, guiding him toward the school. They both crossed the street briskly, swallowed by the busyness of the world around them, but all Jake could focus on was the tightening coil of anxiety in his chest. Arriving at the school, he noticed the usual cheerful chatter of children had given way to hushed apprehension. Officials were gathered at the entrance, faces drawn, hinting at the seriousness of the situation. Jake nodded the moment Claire's hand found his arm. She was a tether in this storm, grounding him as they approached the reception desk together. "Hi, my daughter, Lily, is supposed to be here," he said, forcing clarity through his voice. "What happened?" The receptionist's eyes flickered with recognition, but her expression turned grave. "There was a lockdown due to an incident in the neighborhood. It was precautionary. The police are handling it, but we need parents to stay calm." As the words sank in, Jake's thoughts spiraled. Precautionary? That could mean anything. "How can we see her?" Claire interjected, her urgency reverberating off the sterile walls. "You'll need to wait for the all clear. It's protocol." The receptionist's eyes darted to the door, conveying a sense of helplessness. They stood there, enveloped in tension. Jake's mind raced through images of Lily, safety drifting farther away with each passing second. He turned his attention to Claire, her presence becoming increasingly vital to navigate the brittle web of worry that tangled around them. By some unspoken signal, they took a few steps back from the reception area, where the muffled voices of the adults and the absent laughter had begun to dull against the weight of dread. Claire leaned closer, her voice steady. "We'll find a way to get through this. For her." He nodded, thankful for her grounding influence. But alongside her resolve, a flicker of realization bloomed within him. Navigating this helplessness, he realized, required more than just waiting. Knowledge was power in their current crisis, and Jake's instincts kicked in. "Let me call someone," he said, a sense of purpose emerging through the haze. He knew enough local journalists that could provide swift insight into what was happening. He wasn't merely supporting Claire anymore, he had to actively forge a path amid the chaos. As he dialed a familiar number, his gaze sharp, the connection forged in the chaos began to draw on some deeper well of resilience. "Jake. What's up?" The voice on the other end sounded disinterested, but he had learned the art of reclaiming tension into opportunity. "The school's on lockdown. I need to know why." The subsequent conversation crystallized Jake's determination. He absorbed the information, piecing together a picture that threaded his fatherly fears with their strategic efforts. Armed with it, he turned to Claire. "They're saying it might involve a disturbance in the area. We should gather evidence if we can. If something's happening outside, we might leverage it for our next steps." Claire's eyes sparkled with a fierce understanding. "You really think we can spin this to our advantage?" "Yes," he responded with sudden clarity. "We're not powerless. We can use this moment. We can draw connections, manipulate the media landscape. But first, we need to ensure Lily's secure." The official announcement silenced the school, the lock was lifted. And parents began entering the building again. Jake felt fear melt into rapid determination as he scanned the faces around him. Some were full of fear, others rage. The stakes were rising now. Each heartbeat pounded with the promise that the landscape of opportunity was shifting again. His phone buzzed, halting his thoughts momentarily. Another text. New developments regarding the legal case urgent. He realized that adversity bore unexpected gifts. The intertwining of personal crises could lead to more profound revelations. "Let us move," he said, his voice steadying, eyes locked with Claire's. This moment held potential, a time to rally forces. But as they turned away from the school, a shadow fell over them, a figure that could derail everything they had just ignited. The time had come to face whatever storm awaited them in the horizon once they stepped across that threshold. The sunlight faltered as Jake and Claire exited the school grounds, the weight of the moment pressing heavily against his chest. The world outside was dissonant, a cacophony of sirens and distant chatter underscoring a series of images swirling in his mind. Would Lily be okay? The question tore at him, amplifying his resolve to take control of the situation. "You okay?" Claire asked, her voice a gentle nudge amidst the tumult in his thoughts. "Yeah," he replied, though the tremor in his voice betrayed him. Distracting himself from the infinite scenarios cascading through his mind, Jake turned his focus back toward their next steps. "Let's head to that cafe down the street. If something's happening, we can strategize and keep an ear to the ground." Claire nodded, her grip on his hand firm as they walked. The cafe was just a block away, a familiar haven where comfort food offered solace against the day's uncertainty. This was a place he and Lily often visited, warm mugs cradled in their hands as they engaged in playful banter over cupcakes and coffee. But today, everything felt starkly different. As they entered the cafe, the rich scent of roasted coffee beans momentarily lulled his adrenaline into submission. Wrapped in the comforting noise of clinking cups and hushed conversations, he felt a flicker of familiarity that grounded him. "We need to capitalize on this urgency," he murmured more to himself than Claire, scanning the room for any signs that could tether them to useful information. They settled into a corner booth, the ambience buzzing with echoes of life reminiscent of days gone by. It was there that the torrent of thoughts collided, personal and professional ambitions marred by uncertainty. "What do we do next?" Claire leaned in, her eyes shining with determination. Jake took a deep breath, assessing the situation. "We can utilize our connections. I need to reach out to people who might have insights on this disturbance. It's not just about Lily. If we can unravel the threads connecting this lockdown with my case, we can safeguard ourselves." He hadn't anticipated the convergence of his personal troubles with his ongoing legal battle, yet now the intersection seemed almost serendipitous, a chance to reclaim power amidst chaos. As he pulled out his phone once more to send an urgent message, his thoughts spiraled to the hidden strengths he had discovered throughout the years. Running a successful marketing business had built a resilience he often underestimated. Each challenge had sculpted him, sharpening his instincts to anticipate and maneuver through adversity. "Jake," Claire's voice snapped him back. "Can we really manipulate this to our advantage?" "Of course," he replied, newfound clarity illuminating his demeanor. This wasn't merely about navigating parental anxieties, it was about asserting his position in an unpredictable world. "This is my opportunity to show that I'm capable, more than just a reactive parent. We can turn this crisis into leverage." The intense realization bloomed, pushing out the shadows that had tangled beneath his skin. Facing the portrait of the man he'd become, Jake felt tangible evidence of growth. Every misstep had been an opportunity for learning, each confrontation led to clarity. He was no longer just a participant, he was a contender. Jake resumed his contacts, fingers flying across the screen as Claire leaned back, quietly admiring his newfound focus. Time ticked away as plans began to form in his mind, a strategy born from chaos. The confidence stung with a different kind of fear, one that quelled doubt. He had to balance taking charge with careful consideration, exactly how to walk that fine line would ultimately define their next steps. "Let us not forget about the shadow," Claire reminded him softly, grounding him once more. "We still have that to deal with." The impending confrontation loomed ahead like storm clouds on the horizon, but Jake felt ready to face it. The intertwining of his roles as a father and a professional was taxing, yet clarity emerged from the depths of anxiety. Whatever the shadow intended to disrupt, Jake believed they possessed the insight needed to alter their fate. With one last glance at Claire, something heavier than determination settled in Jake's eyes. They were at a precipice, facing adversity's past could either undo them or forge new paths toward resilience and victory, but as he raised his phone to make another call, a chill swept through him. Was it unease or the thrill of opportunity? The answer loomed just beyond reach, and an unsettling anticipation filled the air. As the line connected, Jake braced himself. What awaited him could change everything. The call connected, and Jake's heart raced, each chime a metronome marking his escalating apprehension. It rang twice before a voice answered, gravelly yet familiar, a liaison from his past, someone who had once thrown a lifeline in the swirling seas of corporate complexity. "Jake?" "It's been a while," said Terrence, a former colleague whose street-smart instincts often matched Jake's business acumen. Jake leaned in, urgency lacing his words. "Terrence, I need intel. Anything on the lockdown at the school?" Terrence's response was immediate, his tone shifting to one Jake recognized when danger was afoot. "Heard some whispers. Rumors of a threat, possibly linked to a bigger player. You might want to keep your head low." Jake's thoughts raced. He was no stranger to the skirmishes of corporate warfare, but this was different, a threat to his daughter, a personal vendetta. "What are we dealing with? Can you provide specifics?" As Terrence detailed the emerging narrative, Jake focused on the final piece of the puzzle that would lead them to the truth. As the conversation wrapped, the prospect of leveraging Terrence's intel ignited something primal within him. He formulated a plan, a series of strategic conversations designed to navigate the murky waters ahead. "You know where to find me," Jake said, his voice steady despite the storm inside. He hung up the phone, adrenaline coursing through his veins, glancing at Claire. A tumult of determination painted her features. "What's next?" she prompted, her voice steadying him as PowerPoint presented before him in clear visuals, clearer ideas born from distress. "We need to reach out," he replied, excitement creeping into his voice. "I have a lead. If I can piece together the fragments, maybe we can also get the upper hand against the shadow." The word hung in the air, saturated with the weight of it all. He had been circling the drain of denial, adamant that fear wouldn't dictate his next steps. However, each stroke of truth crossed his mind like a battle cry. The shadow was not just an abstract threat, it was a force that could destroy what he fought to protect. They dove into tactics, Jake outlining a strategy that required him to use the business network he had fostered over the years. "I can spin this to my advantage," he murmured, another wave of confidence washing over him. With their agenda set, they moved forward. Jake shot messages to trusted contacts, alerting them to reconcile rumors while leveraging his connections within the community and business circles. Each interaction felt more like setting a trap for the shadows lurking beyond his immediate reality. With advance notes and records of past deals surrounding him, Jake grasped a confidence he didn't realize he had. But as the afternoon sun dipped lower, casting long shadows through the cafe window, an unsettling notion prickled at the back of his mind. There was something amiss, and that somber reality reminded him that danger was like a siren, beautifully alluring yet destructive. Claire's hand brushed against his and snapped him back. "You have a plan, right?" "A solid one," he assured, but the flicker of uncertainty shadowed his heart. Each contact he engaged with could either provide the solution he desperately sought or plunge him deeper into murky waters woven with deceit. He knew well the intersection of ambition and betrayal could lead to paths littered with familial costs he wasn't yet ready to bear. Just as he prepared another call, Words wove through his mind's fabric like strands of silk. This could blow up in our faces, Jake. But an unyielding spark ignited inside him twin flames of fear and excitement. The path seemed more perilous than before, but that thrill of discovery surged in equal measure. Then his phone chimed with an incoming message. He swiped to reveal a name that sent the air electric, an old mentor who had once guided him through the depths of corporate cynicism. A sense of urgency knotted in his stomach. This wasn't just a test of that mentor's influence, it was also a reckoning of Jake's newfound agency. He had the potential to confront the shadow, but what if the confrontation didn't lead to liberation but rather revealed deeper layers of betrayal? The moment hung heavily, pulling Jake toward an unpredictable future, one where revelations could either propel him into a new legacy or dismantle everything he held dear. As he readied himself to engage, the room felt charged with anticipation. The stakes had just escalated. Things were about to get complicated. Jake's heart pounded as he read the name on the screen again, as if expecting the letters to morph into an explanation. Leonard Harper. The man had been an important mentor during Jake's ascent in the corporate world, teaching him not just the intricacies of deals but carving out the fortitude to face adversities that threatened personal foundations. Leonard's mentorship hadn't just sharpened Jake's skills, it had fortified his identity. The fear that rippled through him, however, wasn't just unease about reconnecting. Years of distance had reinforced the notion that Leonard had moved on to a life far removed from corporate skirmishes and family dramas. He hesitated, knowing full well that this conversation could unveil secrets he might not be prepared to face, yet the urgency pressed on him like a vice. Whatever Leonard knew about the shadow could be pivotal. The mental jigsaw of loyalty versus necessity replayed in his mind, but in this moment, the need for answers trumped all uncertainties. That he pressed the call button, listening as the phone rang. Each ring echoed his resolve, stirring the multitude of emotions within him. Would Leonard still have his back? He had always been forthright, and the honesty they shared often led to difficult but needed conversations. This time, it could have dire consequences. Jake. Leonard's voice, though familiar, carried the weight of years and untold stories. It's good to hear from you. Leonard, he began, attempting to steady himself. I need your insight on a situation. It's about the school lockdown. Silence blanketed the other end, but not the kind that indicated indifference. It was the careful pause of someone bracing for complicated matters. I've heard murmurs. Leonard's tone shifted, revealing layers of seriousness. And I have contacts who may know more, but I need to understand how deep this goes for you. Jake felt the urgency fermenting. A direct threat to my daughter. It's personal, Leonard. I can't let this go unanswered. There was a slight hesitance before Leonard spoke again. Jake, this isn't just business anymore. This is dangerous territory. The shadows you're facing, they're not just shadows, Jake interjected. This is about my family. Each word crashed like waves against the rocks of his doubt. The stakes surged higher. He couldn't afford to shy away now. Too much was at risk. Okay, Leonard finally conceded, the gravity of his agreement palpable. Do you trust me? The question swirled, merging their histories into this decisive moment. Would trust translate into loyalty or betrayal? Absolutely, Jake affirmed, but even as he said it, vestiges of past complexities churned within him. Then let us meet. I can get you the information you need, but we have to tread carefully. The urgency returned to Leonard's voice, lifeblood rushing back into their exchange. There are players involved who play a much bigger game than just schoolyard threats. Jake nearly diverted the call, his instincts screaming at him to retreat, yet the conversation roared ahead, pushing him to confront the essence of his fears. The world of betrayals he had placed behind him was slowly slipping back into view, taunting him with unresolved angst and regret. They finalized arrangements to meet that evening, and as Jake ended the call, dread settled like a lead weight in his stomach. He was stepping back into an arena riddled with complexities that he thought he had left behind. Conversely, there was a spark of purpose igniting behind the dread, a reminder of all he had fought to achieve: his family's safety, his daughter's future. Are you okay? Claire's concerned gaze met his after he hung up. Just strategizing, he replied, masking the turmoil beneath the surface. Are you really? She pressed, reading him like an open book. It sounds serious. This was the moment of reckoning Jake had dreaded. He could either shield Claire from the storm or draw her into a web of confrontation he barely understood. But the truth was like an itch pressing him from the inside out. She deserved to know. The shadow isn't just a rumor. It's real. And it could get darker before it gets better. His admission felt like a double-edged sword, but it was the only path forward. The stakes had transformed from corporate treachery to familial jeopardy, and the intensity of the situation thickened the air between them. Then we fight, Claire said, her resolve firming up against the encroaching darkness. A mix of pride and anxiety washed over Jake. Was he ready for the fierce confrontation ahead? The answer loomed larger than life, pulsating with anticipation. As he turned to leave, a new message pinged on his phone, a notification from an anonymous source, the brief content gripping him with cold uncertainty. Tonight will change everything. He steeled himself for whatever awaited them. This was merely the prelude. The night would bring answers and perhaps more questions than he had prepared to confront. As twilight faded and shadows stretched across the suburban landscape, Jake found himself staring out the window, his mind racing. The limitations of his once orderly existence were crumbling. Tonight's meeting with Leonard amid the creeping dread filled him with conflicting motivations. He was aware this wasn't just a reunion with an old mentor. It represented a pendulum swinging between safety and the unknown. He glanced at Claire, who was preparing dinner with a resolute air. The normalcy of chopping vegetables, the rhythmic sound of knife against cutting board, felt jarring against the backdrop of his turbulent thoughts. She was threading a needle of hope through the fabric of their impending storm, unaware of the weighty decisions he was contemplating. How do you protect your family without pulling them into the chaos of your decisions? Jake's pulse quickened as he recalled Leonard's serious tone, the stakes they discussed. This wasn't an abstract threat but one that could impact his daughter's future. He needed to clarify his thoughts, compartmentalize the fear suffocating him. He had relied on his grit in the corporate realm, but this felt like stepping into uncharted territory, a hybrid of the personal and the perilous. Are you sure about meeting Leonard? Claire asked suddenly, her perceptive nature piercing through his facade. You haven't seen him in years. What if he's changed? Her insight struck a nerve, the reminder that nothing about Leonard was simple. Their prior mentorship had been forged in the fiery challenges of corporate ladders and backdoor dealings. Leonard had opened doors for Jake but had also guided him through moral mazes. Change was inevitable, he could already see it in the flicker of doubt dancing across Claire's features. I have to, he replied, the conviction settling in his voice. I need to know what's going on. This shadow business itself too close to home. As dinner wrapped up, they descended into a weighty silence. With each tick of the clock, Jake's anticipation morphed into anxiety. The idea of facing the murkiness of his past, mingling it with his present fears, created an emotional cyclone. The phone in his pocket buzzed again, snapping him out of his reverie. It was another message, this one cryptic. You're not the only one looking for answers. The chill it sent down his spine ignited a determination he hadn't expected to feel. Who was this? What kind of game was being played? As question after question erupted in his thoughts, he realized it wasn't merely about protecting his daughter anymore, it was also about reclaiming his own narrative. Jake's mind shifted into high gear. He stopped thinking solely of fear and began to strategize. If he was stepping into a web, he needed to understand the threads, the connections between Leonard, the shadow, and whoever was pulling the puppet strings. He needed more than just answers, he needed to anticipate moves before they were made. Before he could unravel this thread alone, Jake would need to leverage Leonard's wisdom and resources, integrating it with his own strengths, creating a synthesis of history and courage. This was a time to be decisive, to overcome the being that had once been complacent in boardrooms, and embrace the proactive protector he had to become. At that moment, the resolve crystallized. Rather than hiding behind fear or letting it dictate his actions, he would march forward, embracing the path ahead, ready to confront both shadows of his past and those threatening his family's present. Jake? Claire's voice sliced through his thoughts. Are you with me? With a measured breath, he turned to her, determined. More than ever. We'll fight this together. As the night deepened, he felt a new sense of purpose igniting within him. Everything he had learned, both in the boardroom and at home, would be tested tonight. He was no longer merely reacting to threats, he was stepping into his own agency. Stepping through the door, he paused. Would he find clarity with Leonard, or would new revelations settle deeper into the chaos? He could feel the edge of an unknown possibility, one that had the potential to empower or dismantle everything he held dear. With the weight of that uncertainty pressing against his chest, Jake took a final look at Claire. In her eyes, he found an anchor. Tonight will change everything, he whispered before stepping out into the shadows. The door closed behind him, a mental barrier sealing in his resolve. With each step toward the unknown, he had to confront one truth. He wasn't just reclaiming his narrative, he was rewriting it, armed with determination and love, a potent combination against whatever lay ahead. The night air was thick with unseen challenges, and as the first images of the past flooded back, Jake knew this was only the beginning. As Jake approached Leonard's office, the familiar buzz of anxiety surged through him. He felt a mix of anticipation and trepidation. It was now or never. This meeting had the potential to illuminate the shadows that had haunted him for so long, bridging the gap between his past and the present. The door swung open to reveal Leonard, his mentor, once a guiding force in Jake's career but now a wild card in the unfolding drama of his life. "Jake," Leonard greeted, his expression a blend of warmth and scrutiny. "You look determined." "Determined sounds about right," Jake replied, his voice steady. He moved into the office, taking a seat across from Leonard, bracing himself for the discussions that would follow. "You've changed, Jake," Leonard remarked after a moment, assessing him. "It's different this time. You're not just here to discuss business, are you?" "No, it's personal." "It's about Lily," Jake said, a sharpness edging into his tone. "I need to understand the threat, the shadow, as you call it. I cannot allow it to dictate our lives any longer." Leonard nodded, a flicker of understanding crossing his face. "You always were a fighter. But you can't face this alone. This is bigger than you think." With Leonard's guidance, Jake would unpack the layered complexity surrounding the threats to his family. They discussed connections, piecing together contacts, motivations, and potential maneuvers that could be made. Jake felt empowered as Leonard unfolded crucial strategies, revealing a blueprint of action that required courage, intelligence, and a willingness to confront the darkness that lurked within their own city. As the hours slipped by, clarity emerged. Among the webs of treachery and familial ties, Jake began to map out a plan that could redefine not just Claire's narrative but his own. Each revelation ignited a new flame within him. He was not just a single father but a protector, a strategist weaving strength from vulnerability. "You know what you have to do now," Leonard urged, and in that moment, a surge of confidence coursed through Jake. The obstacles that had once loomed before him transformed into stepping stones, each one leading to a potential breakthrough. Leaving Leonard's office felt like emerging from a storm into sunlight. The path ahead was still fraught with uncertainty, yet Jake's steps were now infused with a newfound conviction. He envisioned not only a fight against the shadow but also a reclamation of his own narrative, a declaration of who he was and what he represented, not just for himself but for Lily as well. When he returned home, he found Claire in the living room, deep in thought. As he walked in, their eyes met, and he could see a shared resolve kindling between them. "What happened?" Claire asked, her anticipation palpable. "I got intel," he began, his voice unwavering. "And a plan." He explained the strategies discussed, detailing how they could leverage the chaos of the current climate surrounding Claire's narrative. Each word felt empowering as he watched Claire's eyes light up with understanding and solidarity. Together, they established a schedule of actions, reaching out to journalists, gathering evidence of Claire's family's tactics, and most importantly, fortifying their own shared story against the coming storms. The gravity of their situation was urgent, but together, they thrived under the shared weight. The following weeks transformed their lives. Reports began to emerge validating Claire's narrative against her family, and together, they stood unwavering before any media onslaught, reclaiming their space. Jake felt his heart swell with pride as he realized how far they had come, how much they had achieved through adversity. Every battle they faced deepened Jake's self-belief. He was no longer just an echo of his past. He had built a strong presence, wielding knowledge and resilience as his armor. One afternoon, a local news anchor reached out for a special interview, wanting to feature both Jake and Claire's fight for truth against injustice. They shared their story publicly, illuminating their journey and offering hope to others facing similar shadows. That day, Jake felt something shift within him, a quieter yet pervasive confidence. As their story gained traction, recognition of Jake's instincts within the community began to shimmer. He received words of appreciation from neighbors, friends, and even those who had once doubted him. The final crescendo fulfilled a yearning beyond any financial success. Jake achieved the recognition he had long sought, not as the single dad but as a courageous advocate, a transformed figure carving a legacy of strength, wisdom, and love. Claire smiled at him one evening amidst the dim ambience of their home. "You've done this. You've changed everything," she said softly. Jake met her gaze with a depth of understanding. "We've done this together." In that moment, Jake realized that he wasn't just protecting a legacy, he was creating one, a powerful testament to perseverance, growth, and compelling resolve that would echo through generations to come. Now, reflecting on his journey, Jake stood confidently on the threshold of what lay ahead. The shadows had receded, not because they had vanished, but because he had learned to confront them head-on, finding victory in authenticity rather than fear. He turned to Claire, a smile breaking across his face. "Let us keep this momentum going. We deserve the future we're building." Their intertwined paths, once laden with uncertainty, now radiated strength, a true partnership united by purpose, resilience, and love. And so, Jake had not just transformed himself, he had affirmed a new identity forged through strength and authentic growth, creating a legacy, brick by brick, as a protector, a father, and a partner. They were ready for whatever would come next, bound by their stories, empowered to claim them with fierce resolve. This was the moment for the world to see their triumph, and Jake wouldn't shy away from sharing their journey. He was finally living a life defined by his own terms, and that realization was the ultimate achievement. Now, if you're feeling inspired by Jake's journey to transformation, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for more exclusive emotional stories that can empower your life. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others discover these journeys. Comment your reactions and theories about this incredible ending. And don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Together, we can build a community of strength and belief.